Welcome to the Creating Wealth Podcast, where Kyle Curtin takes you on an extraordinary journey alongside renowned multifamily real estate sponsors and syndication experts from every corner of the United States. We teach you how to harness the power of passive real estate investing and witness the transformation of your wealth building strategy. Let's create wealth together.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 127 of the Creating Wealth Podcast. Today, I'm super excited to tell you guys the top 5 ways to stay at home as much as possible and self-managing your rental properties. So this is something that I've actively been on the journey of for a while, as well as many of you guys. It's definitely, if possible, and there are some things that I'm going to share with you today that will probably make it seem a lot more possible if you haven't done it yet, or whatever your situation may be, to be able to self-manage a couple rental properties or even more. I'm definitely not at the point yet where I'm kind of testing the waters on if it makes more sense from different perspectives to have a property manager step in and take over some of these things. But these are some things that I've learned over the past almost couple of years at this point, from my building in Leominster. And it's actually, kind of accelerated a bit as of recently because I've, permanently changed my residence back, moved back in with my parents. And, everything's all changed over. So that's just a rental property. And given, the town that I grew up in is only like 35 minutes away from the property, but there's some solid reasons why I wanted to make this episode, especially because I'm living it at the moment too. And these are some things that I've come across very recently and, have been a lot of fun to implement. And it's still essentially a workflow that I'm going to continue to orchestrate, as we pick up more properties and, go larger and that type of thing. So let's jump right into it, guys. So again, like I mentioned, and like it says in the title, there are 5 different super awesome pieces of advice that I'm going to give you guys today, to try to basically limit, the requirement for you stepping on foot, at any of your rental properties, and these lessons can definitely be applied in a lot of different settings. I'm curious how many people out there would consider doing this type of thing and implementing these, different options for an out-of-state property. I don't know if I'm not daring at the moment, but then again, you never know. But anyway, so let's jump right in, my friends. So the first way is absolutely online rent collection. Now, I mean, I feel like this one, it's 2023, should be a staple for anybody. And yeah, the days of, driving by the property to pick up the checks, hopefully not picking up cash. Hopefully you're not into that kind of thing. I'm not judging you, but definitely not my cup of tea. From your tenants for rent every month or taking Venmo, like anything like that. Like, play the game the right way. But it is absolutely essential. I mean, literally like the first step in trying to, essentially like step away in a sense as much as possible is by having an online rent collection system. So I personally have used apartments.com for a while. It's completely free for both you and the tenants. The only thing that the tenants do pay for, if they choose, is I believe if they pay their rent with a credit card, I think there's a crazy like 2% fee, which is freaking ridiculous. Or you can have them connect their bank account via like an ACH connection. And then it just gets taken out like, dollar for dollar, like 1700. Definitely, advise that over paying another freaking 2%, especially with the rents in Massachusetts. But yeah, so it's an absolutely phenomenal software. There's 1.5 million of them out there. I have only personally used apartments.com. I absolutely dig it. It has served me extremely well. It's very easy for tenants to set up as well. A while back, I set up a little SOP or a standard operating procedure to be able to email to tenants and be like, hey, like click this button, this button, this button, put this here, put this here, that type of thing to get it all set up. And there are a lot of extra features in there as well. Like you can even create leases within apartments.com and that kind of thing. I personally have my own leases from Massachusetts that I definitely will not stray away from when it comes to that kind of thing. Kind of some of the go-to leases for um, for general transactions and that type of thing. But anyway, so essentially that's definitely the biggest one. I absolutely love apartments.com. Not a sponsor, although if you guys want to talk, I'm open to it. I'm just kidding. Um, but yeah, you know what I mean? I think it's absolutely awesome. They don't have an app on your phone, which kind of stinks, at least for the rental management side of it. There is an apartments.com app, like just for, looking for apartments and that type of thing. I should say as of October 24th of 2023, there isn't like a management app type of deal. But yeah, so basically like you just log in. It also tells you, it'll shoot you emails once in a while of certain things changing, like, oh, this tenant's lease is coming up due soon. Like, what are you gonna do? Um, and you also can look in the app as well and look on a per unit basis and see, if the tenant started to put the payment through. I will tell you, and it's probably the same for the majority of the platforms, although I can't speak for every platform, but it does take anywhere from usually like 3 to like 6-ish days, for the payment to go from apartments.com into your bank account, which stinks. It is what it is. Something to keep in mind, when you go through a platform like this. But yeah, you can actually tell like if the tenants started to put the payment through, if it's in processing, if it's being delivered. There's like an estimated delivery date. It'll give you like a little date and that type of thing. And it's good. You know what I mean? It's very user friendly for pretty much all types of people. Um, and there isn't really too much to it. And I think simplicity in this sense is a very good thing. Especially more for tenants who, might be a little bit older, maybe, a bit younger as well, and that type of thing. But I absolutely love it. The other side of that, and this one's kind of like a little bonus tip in a sense, is to have an operating account. And this stuff might seem pretty simple, guys, but I definitely wanted to put it out there anyway, and kind of put it on this list, is basically having like this one central bank account where, that links up to apartments.com, whatever your platform is. Rents flow into it and your mortgage, PITI, as well as expenses, utilities, that type of thing flow out of it. Utilities that you're responsible for. And yeah, like it's a pretty solid way to be able to, keep things organized. I did at one point try to implement profit first. And it was a little bit over my head, I'm not gonna lie to you. I forget who that book is by. Definitely check it out. It's an awesome book. But um, it's kind of a whole different model of essentially like paying yourself first and kind of like doing things differently and that type of thing. I won't get into that today. But yeah, so basically like number one, guys, is definitely keeping things online. You know what I mean? To jump into number two, this one is definitely Massachusetts specific. I'm not sure. There are definitely like other platforms out there that are responsible for this. I'm not sure if there was a completely free one out there for every single state that you guys are living in that's outside of Massachusetts. But basically, you need to find a platform that manages security deposits. So, although many of you guys know that Massachusetts is pretty asinine, for lack of a better term, when it comes to managing security deposits, and there are a lot of very easy ways to be able to mismanage it like completely by accident. And essentially like not be able to use that type of thing if you get in like an eviction situation in court, that type of deal. There's a lot of ways to screw it up, is what I'm getting at. And to the point that, and I do not agree with this whatsoever, guys, but I am going to mention it just because I thought it was interesting. Is I had an attorney a while back, a long time ago, probably like 3 or 4 years ago, something like that. At this point, do like a webinar and tell everybody on there not to take security deposits in mass, because you're probably going to screw it up, and just do it like a whole different way, and first last, and like some other type of account or something. I personally don't agree, but I thought it was a very interesting perspective. But yeah, so the one for Massachusetts, guys, is called Z Deposit. It's another platform that's freaking awesome, completely free for both you as well as the tenants. Pretty easy to set up. It essentially is ran through local credit unions, and I forget which bank mine is through. It might be through something like Norwood, like some bank in Norwood, or um, I totally forget. I literally set it up like when I first bought the house, like almost a couple years ago now. So it's been a little while, but doesn't really matter. But basically, it's completely free, very user friendly, just like apartments.com is. You sign into a certain part, set things up, as well as your tenants sign into a certain part, set up their portion. There's logins that are issued and that type of thing to be able to access it, like that type of deal. And everything is managed from within. So basically, you don't have to have the headache of dealing with like monthly distributions and, setting up all the crap that Massachusetts wants you to, put together. I absolutely love it. It's something that I'm going to continue using, especially going into, 6 units and up, which we're already working on there, my friends. Definitely going to use the same systems actually throughout this whole entire list, for the, 6 family, 8 family, 10 family opportunity. We are actively marketing for those, by the way. I won't get into that right now, but essentially, yeah. So security deposits, managing those, absolutely huge. I can't speak for other states. There are definitely many states out there that aren't as tenant friendly as Massachusetts is, and that type of thing. And more in favor of the landlord. So there's probably a bunch of other ways to manage it in that sense, but I can't really talk about that much. Number 3, my friends, is to find your team. So this is another one that may seem pretty simple, and many of you guys may know, but again, just one that I'm going to stick out there anyway. So to get you started, there are a couple key roles that you absolutely need to get you going. You know what I mean? And this even goes deeper than what I'm going to tell you guys, and I won't really get into that part of it, of like having like a maintenance guy, like paying him a retainer for a couple of months of like taking calls and yada yada yada. Just found out recently that you could do that. But I'm not going to get into that. But essentially, the team that you need to start you off is a handyman to be able to handle, some of those miscellaneous maintenance like tasks, like random things that, get brought up throughout the course of, owning your rental properties, just like weird situations, like just kind of like things that like you're not really sure who to call, or like some more like minimal type of tasks and that type of thing. A handyman is definitely going to be your person. I highly recommend having a couple of these guys or gals, because I actually got burnt by one and I wasn't too thrilled about it. But essentially as well, they may be like, one man or woman shows, maybe a couple people, that type of thing. So they might be, running around to a lot of other landlords and clients and that type of thing. So it's good to have a couple of these folks. Next role is going to be an electrician. That one is pretty self-explanatory. You know, anything past like tripping a breaker, you need somebody to be able to come on site and diagnose some of these issues. Because you definitely do not want to be dabbling with certain things, especially more than especially if you're up in the Northeast. And, you know, we got like fuse boxes that are, you know, super freaking old. Most of the buildings are like between 50, 100, 150 plus years old. You know, knob and tube wiring and that type of thing. There's a lot to pay attention to. So an electrician, absolutely killer. Again, I recommend having at least a couple of these people, um, you know, to be able to call or text when needed. That goes hand in hand with the plumber as well. Um, yeah, you know, I mean, you never know when in the middle of the winter time you're going to have a water heater blow up on you, leak all over the place, and you need somebody to call for that. Ask me how I know that. Um, but yeah, a plumber is another absolutely key one. I mean, yeah, for, you know, service calls, but also for like, you know, if you're getting a water heater replaced, if you're having, you know, getting, yeah, I mean, like other like appliances and that type of thing replaced or what have you. You definitely need these guys, especially if you have gas. Um, but yeah, you also never know, you know, when a drain is going to get plugged, and you know, having a fella, or I don't know what the feminine version of fella is. But basically like having you know, someone there to be able to like, you know, respond to that inquiry from one of your tenants, you know, and go and unsnake the drain is absolutely key. So next person, you have the handyman, electrician, your plumber. You need a person for outside maintenance. So, you know, someone to cut the grass every, you know, couple weeks or so, as well as someone for snow to plow in the wintertime. These ones are absolutely key because you don't want to be the person that, you know, throws the snowblower in the back of your truck. Um, or it might not even be feasible because I have a sedan and trying to fit a snowblower back there would be very challenging and comedic for all the people around me. You know, and then drive over in like 3, 4 inches of snow and essentially like put yourself at risk. When instead, you know, you might be able to just find someone who, you know, can do passes in the driveway if there's like above 3 inches of snow and that type of thing. Sometimes you can actually find companies that do, you know, like landscaping in the summer and fall and that type of thing, and also plow in the wintertime. So that might be able to find, you might be able to find one person or one company to do both of those, and that would be pretty sweet. um, that team right there should be a very solid start to get you started. So again, you have your handyman, electrician, plumber, grass slash snow person. And then there are a couple more folks that I want to throw in here. A little bit less directly, more of an indirect, you know, kind of member of your team, but definitely, you know, someone that you want to have on your quote unquote board of advisors, you know, in your investor journey. One of those being an attorney, because there are definitely, you know, situations that come up once in a while, you know, with tenants and leases, and you know, certain like legal situations that you definitely don't want to roll the dice on and hope things work in your favor. So having an absolutely awesome attorney on standby, you know, that you can just give a buzz or, you know, whatever that looks like. Definitely sharing a super good relationship with them is key, to be able to clear up some of those potential issues right away. Hopefully before things get out of hand, and so you don't have to take any, you know, unnecessary risks on yourself. Um, and then the last person in that team, guys, in super indirectly, is other investors in the area. So it may be a little bit daunting, especially if you just closed on a property, to, you know, find all of these types of roles and like, you know, looking through the phone book or, you know, like Thumbtack. Don't recommend that app, by the way. different podcast episode. But yeah, I mean, it may be a little daunting to like pick up all of these folks and be a bit more proactive, especially if like, oh, all of a sudden something happens, you get a call for no hot water, like you don't know what the hell to do, you need somebody out there now because the tenants are going crazy. It can definitely put you in kind of a stressful situation. And that's where having other investor buddies, especially in that particular neck of the woods, is ridiculously valuable. Because that's the beauty of it, guys. We are all in this investing game together. Many people own properties in the same market that you do, probably on the same street. And at some point or another, like you tend to just like find these relationships, right? And that's one of the beauties of having a lot of friends that are landlords as well, or just other, plain rental investors, is um some of these teams are already pre-built, and like sharing contractors is an awesome benefit, to having buddies. Being able to bail people out of, potentially iffy situations is always key. It's something that is absolutely awesome. It's like completely mutual. You can create a lot of value for someone, you know what I mean, as well as other investors do for you. If somebody needs an electrician stat because something's going on and you just happen to have a pretty awesome electrician, make the connection, guys. Give them their number and that type of thing. Bail them out, and like we're literally all in this game together, because a raising tide raises all boats. So yeah. But yeah, that's absolutely key, as well as going to other investors for general advice that may not necessarily be legal, like stuff that you want to ask your attorney, may not be maintenance related, may be more of an advice front, maybe a shoulder to cry on if you have, a lot of CapEx things hit you in the face at the same time. Been there, done that. But you survive, you know what I mean? But yeah, having other friends that are investors, I can't speak highly enough of that. And yeah, like always just be open and give advice and value and relationships with zero expectation of return. And you should be in a pretty good spot. So, number 4 is deploy who, not how. So, Who Not How is a book that is right behind me. You probably can't see it from here, or you won't see it at all if you're listening to this in the car. But it's an absolutely phenomenal book by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. I had to look. That's why the audio sounded a little muffled. I should know this by heart because this book like punched me in the face, guys, like in an absolutely good way. Highly recommend it, by the way. But basically, to summarize the book in about 10 seconds, instead of asking yourself the question, how can I figure out this particular situation myself? How do I do this myself? Rephrase the question to, who do I need to go to that can either do this, fix this situation for me, or help me find the person that can help me fix this situation. It's a whole different dynamic as soon as you essentially flip that switch in your mind to delegating out a lot more, of some of those things that do come up. Maintenance calls definitely being one of them, as well as, comparing the value of your time and that type of deal. Who Not How is absolutely everything. And what I alluded to a tiny bit when I first got going was I have been delegating quite a bit, a lot more recently, because I ended up moving out of Leominster, and I moved back to my parents' house. So yeah, like, oh, the drain's plugged. I could go to Home Depot, go pick up a snake, drive 35 minutes to get there, throw the snake in the drain, like hope it clears it up. It didn't. Because I say that story from experience literally last week. Because there was a clog that was like, 20 feet down the run, and there was actually like 2 of them, which is crazy. And yeah, hopefully that you fix any random issue that comes up in a pretty small amount of time. There will be those times that it will kick the absolute crap out of you, as well as sometimes that you're going to put hours and hours of work into something, trying to fix a maintenance call, and you're not going to end up fixing it, and you're going to end up calling a professional anyway. So I think, or I should say, I know that there is a dynamic to this, um, because also, like, it may not make sense, for certain aspects to delegate it out, depending on what it is. And especially, if you're more stringent on a budget, and things are a little bit tighter, maybe like the rents aren't up to market yet, like the spread is pretty small for how much you're netting every month. It can very easily like yank out the little bit of cash flow that you do have, but at the same time, it allows you to keep your time. So it's one of those things that you always want to just keep in the back of your mind. But deploying who not how will teach you a lot of lessons extremely fast. And one of the things that I've had to fight, and I'm curious how many of you guys have experienced this as well, is when I started to really push the envelope on who not how, within the past like literally like month or two, there was a little bit of natural resistance, right? So yeah, I did get that text from my MTR tenant saying that my drain lines or my kitchen sink in that unit got a bunch of crap in it, and the line clogged up. So there was definitely the resistance of like, the natural inclination of like, oh, all right, I'll be there in a couple hours. Like I'll go figure it out. But I definitely paid a premium. But I got it done absolutely ASAP. And the other part of that being, with an MTR tenant, like, I don't know, I feel like you should be pretty on the ball with that type of thing, but I'm still learning about that. But essentially, yeah, man, so it's one of those things to keep in mind is sometimes, definitely run the scenario through your head whenever those unexpected events come up and you're off site of like, you know what, man, is it worth it for me to drive 35 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, like whatever the situation is, to be like, oh, you have no heat, for like, what are you going to do? Like go on site and look at the boiler and be like, yeah, there's no heat, and you're going to end up calling the professional anyway, so yeah, just keep in mind the value of your time. There is definitely going to be growing pains to this, especially when the property isn't producing a crazy amount of money. That being said, keep your time extremely valuable and just determine where your time is best well spent, and have some fun with it. But I will tell you, I've definitely been forcing it a lot more, who not how, although I'm paying a little bit of a premium because I'm learning those lessons of basically testing out the strength of my operations as well as my boots on the ground team that I mentioned in the third takeaway, and just seeing how the machine's running. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's something that can be applied in a lot of different ways. Whether it's in your real estate investment business, delegating out different parts of the business, or, in different rental properties, or in other ventures that, you might be involved in, you know. And last but not least, number 5, this one I do really like. It's going to be dependent on the property, depending on how you're renting it, that type of thing. But that's to create a building automation system. So for those of you guys who aren't too familiar with it, it's used a lot more on like commercial properties, like much larger properties, office buildings, like basically, you know, you'll have systems and like sensors on ductwork, um, like controllers, a lot of like low voltage wiring, that type of thing. And it regulates like space temps everywhere, like discharge air temps coming out of air handlers, return air, room temps, that type of thing. Basically, you have a gauge on the physical ecosystem of that environment. Now, there's companies out there like Johnson Controls that, do this on a very large scale, and doing this is ridiculously expensive, and in no way, shape, or form could you use Johnson Controls on like a residential house because it's very, very expensive and meant for big stuff. But that being said, you can definitely do some things to have a gauge on your property and what's going on from a distance without going that route. Like I said earlier, guys, it's freaking 2023. Everything has some sort of smart, Wi-Fi hookup, whatever it is. So some of the things that you can do are adding, smart thermostats where you can, monitor the room temps, that type of thing. Make sure that, the heat's working in the wintertime and that type of deal. There's if you're paying for oil tanks, like if you have like, one oil tank for like a couple units and like, you're paying for heat, or you're doing some sort of short-term rental or mid-term rental strategy where you are paying utilities, this is a good one. I picked up on Amazon a Wi-Fi smart oil gauge that basically screws onto the top of your tank, and it'll do some sort of like pretty scientifical um like connection type of thing, and it'll be able to monitor back to your phone, an app on your phone, how much oil is left in the tank, like send me reminders when it drops down to half, when it drops down to a quarter, and that type of thing. It's absolutely friggin' awesome. Because that actually kind of falls into number 3, I guess, is, if you have oil, one of the people on your team is definitely going to be an oil company, and you have to be able to monitor that from a distance because you definitely, one, don't want to rely on the tenants for this. I feel like it's not really fair to them, as well as you don't want to drive all the way to your building just to look at how much oil is in the tank and see if you need to make a phone call tomorrow. Or a little bit worse, if you forget about it, tank runs dry, you suck up a bunch of sludge into your lines in your boiler, and now all of a sudden you have no heat call. You definitely don't want to get that situation. Yeah, so I did this with the MTR because the utilities are my expense. So I have a mixture of smart thermostats. Um, I have the smart oil tank sensor. I also have had conversations with people about smart valves for domestic hot water, um, or domestic, water in general. So these I haven't toyed with. I'm not sure if it makes sense for residential properties being a lot smaller. Not sure if it makes sense for like to cut one into like each water heater, or just throw one on like a main drain line, like have a plumber cut it in somehow. But I don't have experience with those quite yet, but they are absolutely out there, and they have them on Amazon. I have talked to a couple of people about it in the past. Again, I haven't done it myself yet, but I think it's extremely cool. So in the event that, you have, a water heater brought out on you, if you have like a pipe burst or something like that, these sensors will somehow pick up like an excess flow and it will shut. So basically it could save you, a shit ton of money from water, um, a shit ton of cleanup and expenses there. The value of your time, again, going on site to clean up or paying somebody to go and clean it up. I think it's extremely cool. I haven't dabbled with them. If you guys have, I would love to talk to you about it and be more familiar. And then another thing that you could do as well that I've thought about that I haven't done yet is um, adding cameras in the basement. And just for the purpose of like, shooting them at like your water heaters, at your boiler, maybe like other areas of your basement that, have potential to freeze in the wintertime and that type of thing. So you can basically like just have a gauge on like if crap's hitting the fan and you're, 50 miles away somewhere else. So basically, like, I think it's extremely cool, to do this kind of thing. I think I paid roughly like 1,000-ish bucks. The thermostats were about 300 total. They were like $1.50 a piece, for a couple Pro 8000 thermostats. The smart oil tank sensor, was maybe like $1.60, something like that. And then, oh, I forgot the biggest one. Is having smart pin pad door locks. So, when tenants move in and move out, like, going over there to change the locks, paying a handyman to go over and change the locks, ridiculous. Losing keys, don't want that headache. So one of the things that you can do, and I did do for the MTR, which I absolutely freaking love, is I picked up a Schlag N code. And again, there's a bunch of them out there. I absolutely love it. I'm not gonna lie to you, I did pay like 300 or $350 for the lock set. Um, but it came with a really nice one. And that allows me to see from my phone, at home, because they have an app too. Um, when the door is being open and closed, it allows me to put in certain codes for, or I should say, create certain like pin code combinations for contractors, for cleaners, for tenants. Like you can change codes from within the app and that kind of thing. Man, like those things are friggin' awesome. Originally, I was like, um, a little skeevish because I already had spent a pretty fair amount of money on, getting the MTR up and ready. But this, I couldn't picture myself doing it without it. Um, and I debate on even like putting these on my other two units. Not now, but there may be a day in the future where I do get that, oh, help, I'm locked out, where I might second guess that decision. But yeah, these things are friggin' awesome, guys. It is a bit of money. Like I said, I think I spent roughly like $1,000-ish bucks across those devices, as well as the other thing too. You will have to pay for internet, um, which is a kind of a different conversation. But obviously, like none of this stuff will work and be able to connect to your phone if it isn't connected to a Wi-Fi source. So that is another added expense as well. I have a plan with Verizon for like $50 a month, I think, for like 200 megabytes or something like that. Seems to be doing okay. But yeah, that's pretty much it for now, guys. Like these were some immediate things that came to my mind after personally experiencing them. Again, this list continues to grow and be a lot more streamlined and optimized as time goes on. Yeah, because basically the goal is to stay the hell out of Leominster, keep my tenants happy, keep the checks coming, keep everything automated, and be able to like dodge all of those maintenance calls, that do come up by having kick-ass operations and having the kick-ass who's to be able to take care of the house that I simply just have to text if a tenant texts me, that they don't have heat or, the drain's clogged, whatever the heck it is. So I can just keep moving on with my day, text the plumber, text the electrician, handyman, whatever, have them go over there and fix it, and then jump on a call later on and either, give them like a credit card number or, just mail a check to their office or whatever the case may be and call it a day, you know, because that's the goal. And it again comes from a bandwidth perspective because like guys, you, especially if you want to scale up, you don't want to be the guy or gal that's running over there for every little thing. You want to be able to have the security deposits managed correctly. Just in case you need to leverage some things if certain particular situations with tenants happen. You need to be able to collect rents online and see what the hell's going on if they're not there on the first. Maybe they're being processed. Maybe the tenant hasn't started yet. Like you have a gauge on the entire system as a whole. And that being said, if you don't want to do something like this, like I mentioned earlier, I am marketing for 6 to 100 unit properties in Lowell, Leominster, and Worcester, looking to JV, syndicate depending on what the opportunities, how they present themselves, looking to collaborate with other people, guys. These systems I've learned over the past almost couple of years. They've worked extremely well for me so far. I spend a very, very minimal amount of time on site. And I do actually, at some point in the near future, want to delegate out, communicating with tenants and that type of thing for the MTR and like sourcing, asking questions, like vetting potential tenants, that type of deal to my coworker in the Philippines, because that would be really cool to really be able to step back and optimize that. Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, that's pretty much it for now, my friends. If you guys have more things or, have thoughts on this, I would love to hear what you have to say about it. Yeah, I hope you guys, picked up maybe a thing or two from this that helps you out, allows you to be able to step back from your properties a bit more efficiently, have them take less time, keep the money coming, keep everybody happy, hunky-dory, to allow you to free up your time to go look for that next property. Alrighty, my friends. Thank you very much. Please, if you enjoyed this, please share it with a friend. Leave a rating and a review on the show. I would be incredibly grateful, because I think this stuff is good to share with other people. If you could send it to a friend or two, that type of thing. If you want to talk about this, join the Creating Wealth Together Facebook group. There's over 640 people in there now, which is friggin' wild. Where people are constantly talking in there every day. And yeah, my friends, I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.
That's a wrap for today's episode. We want to thank you for being a valued listener of the Creating Wealth podcast. Make sure to visit www.creatingwealth.com to connect with us. Dive into our ever-expanding library of informative blogs. Get access to our private investor portal and explore a wide range of additional valuable resources. Stay tuned for our next episode as we continue to create wealth together.